The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities.
It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday, and indeed it is. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park Money Radio Studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. If this is the first time you're tuning into our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do they do that? They do that by listening right here to Money Radio Health Futures. I can't believe it. This is the first show of 2023. We're coming at you on January 6th. And man, does time fly by. This also starts the 10th year of Health Futures. James, can you believe it? 10 years we've been doing this. This is crazy. But you guys keep having me back because we keep bringing you meaningful content. And how do we do this? We bring extraordinary guests to the show, and I'm bringing back a repeat guest. She was here back in May, and she had this company that this community that she works with and for called Clarendale, Arcadia. And it was just a vision then, and it was being constructed, and it's still somewhat going through construction, but it is now up, and they have residents there, and they were growing, and I felt it would be a great opportunity to bring her back. Stefanie Smith, Executive Director from Clarendale, Arcadia. Welcome back.
Thank you, Bob. Pleasure to be here again.
Well, it's good to have you here. So, I mean, fast forward almost 7 months, 6.5 months. Tell me what's new.
Well, what's new is that we are open and we have residents.
Yay.
And we couldn't be more excited.
Yay. So you're open. If you wouldn't mind, share with our listeners a little bit about Clarendale, Arcadia, where you guys are. Mm-hmm. I know you're a life care services community.
Yes.
And if you could give just a little bit of an overview for our listeners.
Absolutely. So we, like we just mentioned, we are a life care services community, and we are located at 32nd Street in Camelback, right in the heart of the Biltmore, Arcadia area.
Oh, yeah.
Location, location, location. Yeah. We do offer independent living, assisted living, and memory care. We have a total of 248 residences, and we are up and running. And we have currently 7 residents that are calling Clarendale, Arcadia their home, with quite a few more waiting to move in.
No, and it is really, really a beautiful community. And, you know, for those that are from Arizona, they need to know that 32nd Street is right there where 2 really good restaurants are.
2 very good restaurants,
Yeah.
Tomaso's and Tarbell's, both of which we have a great relationship with, and literally within walking distance of steps from the community.
And I am looking at a posting that was just put up on, believe it's Facebook, and we shared it on our Facebook page. And it was a view of Camelback with the beautiful sunrise. I am telling you, this is breathtaking. And I wish we could show this to our listeners. But if you want to go to either our Facebook or Clarendale, Arcadia's Facebook, you'll see this photo. What a great view. That's from the 5th floor looking out onto Camelback Mountain.
Yes, it was taken from one of our... And I can say exactly where it was taken from because I'm the author of that photograph. Took it this morning. I've been meaning to get up there and watch the sunrise, and was able to finally make that happen this morning. But that is taken from our 5th floor Mountain Vista community room. And the panoramic mountain views from that location are what you see in the photograph. They're absolutely stunning. And our residents can enjoy that view every morning when they wake up, and then beautiful sunsets every evening from the other side.
So you talked about it being from the Mountain View room, right? You have many different vantage points that you can really look at the valley. Look down to Phoenix, look over to Camelback. Can you describe the layout? I know you talked about assisted, independent, and memory care, but how is this building laid out?
It's a large building. It's a large community. It's over 350,000 square feet in total.
Wow.
Yes, and we sit on 6.5 acres, and the majority of that is the actual community. It is laid out so we have a garage parking, full garage parking, but rather than be underground, it's at street level. And to maximize the space that we sit on, we put our heated pool and spa and some of our other amenity features basically on the parking garage. So those are all on the second level of the community.
Wow. Nice. Really, really nice. Maximized all the square footage that was available to you.
Maximize the square footage, and that also gives us those elevated views because you're sitting at the pool and spa on the second level. So you see that actually faces south, and so you see Papago and down to South Mountain, and then the sunsets.
And I'm looking at the website, so I want to give our listeners, if you go to Clarendale Arcadia, and that's CLARENDALE, Arcadia, ARCADIA.com, you can see the views of this gorgeous property and really how panoramically how it faces the city as well as Camelback Mountain. So you get views east, west, north, and south.
You do. From every, like you said, east, west, north, south, you see mountains because of our beautiful landscape here in the valley. Anyway, you see the mountains all the way around.
And for our listeners that know that area, I mean, there aren't towers that are blocking you. I mean, the biggest buildings are down on 24th Street, but that's far enough away that from your vantage point that they don't block you.
They don't impede the view at all.
No, very, 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 very cool. Now, I love the setup. So please share with us the type of community. Is this a buy-in community? Is this a rental? Tell our listeners a little bit about.
We are a rental-based community. So while we do have a community fee, which is a one-time move-in fee, currently $10,000, but we do still have some spots in our Founders Club. And the biggest benefit of being a Founders Club member is the reduction of that community fee by half.
Nice.
Yes, so that is a incentive that we still have at this time. But again, rental-based, so after that one-time community fee is paid, it is just a month-to-month fee.
So Founders available. You can get in on this discounted of 50%. The website I did give out, there's a phone number here too, 480-470-5067. That's the number to call. And Stefanie Smith is the executive director, but she's got an awesome team who I've had a chance to meet a number of those folks that are available to take your call if you're interested. And I want to make this appeal to our listeners because geographically it's in a great area. So, I mean, you are close to the city. You're close to a lot of shopping. Biltmore's right there. Those two fine restaurants that you were talking about, you have an agreement with them where they'll deliver right to the residents and guarantee the food's going to be hot because they don't really have to go anywhere because if you've been there, you'll see Clarendale right behind it. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I've got Stefanie Smith here in the studio. She is from Clarendale, Arcadia. She's the executive director. We've got a lot more to talk about. Stick around. We're one segment down. We got 3 more to go. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And if you're tuning in right now, we have Stefanie Smith here in the studio. She's the executive director of Clarendale, Arcadia. It is a CCRC community. No, not CCRC. It's an independent assisted living and memory care community. Thank you for correcting me. And it is a life care services community, and they are brand new, and they're located right there at 32nd Street in Camelback. If you missed the first segment, go out to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button just below his radio show. You'll catch this one and many more that we've been bringing to you for 10 years. Hard to believe. I said that at the top of the show. 10 years. Can you believe that, Stefanie?
10 years. That's just, the success is incredible, but doing anything for 10 years is incredible.
And I've been at the helm for Cypress for 20 years. And I think you and I talked about this when we just started the show. You've been at this in the senior living world for 20 plus years too, right?
This is my 21st year in senior living. Yes.
Wow. And how much change have you seen?
It's not the same industry that it was when I started. And I mean that in a good way. The changes and the focus on more resident-centered everything is really been incredible, and what our seniors deserve. This is the kind of care, the kind of community that we have is what they should be.
Right. And the change that we just have gone through in the last 3 years, thanks to this pandemic, have been, I don't know how to describe it. It's just been it's been a different world. It really is. In so many ways. I mean, we can talk about the economy and do a whole show on that. We can talk about workforce and do a whole show on that as well. But, I mean, all of these are influencing and impacting the way we deliver care, whether it be an in-home care provider like Cypress Home Care or it be a life care services community like Clarendale at Arcadia. We have to think differently. I didn't want to maybe get into this right now, but curious how you're thinking differently because, I'm employing caregivers. And you employ caregivers, you employ food service technicians, you employ housekeeping, you also have handy folks there. You got plumbers and electricians, all the building services stuff.
Right.
And you probably have security too.
We do.
How's it going? That's a loaded question,
wow, it
isn't
sure
it?
is. But you're exactly right. We are having to look at things differently, and we've been at Clarendale Arcadia incredibly fortunate that our leadership team, we've all been here in the industry in the Valley for a very long time. We've got over 138 years of combined senior living experience here in the Valley.
That's a lot.
It is. And we know people, and that has been a great starting point for us to be able to speak with folks that we've worked with in the past that would like to come join us, or even they're just seeing our open positions and saying, my gosh, we'd really like to come work with you again, which is an incredible feeling. But that's just the start of it, because we are going to need ongoing staff. And as a company with Life Care Services, we really do focus on not just the immediate job somebody is coming to do for us, but also what they want to do. What are their goals? What is the plan? How can we help them achieve those goals? So it's not just a job, it's a career with a company.
No doubt. The other thing that I think really works out well for you, and I could be wrong, but because you are so centrally located, how far is the bus stop for you?
We have a bus stop right in front of the community.
Are you serious?
Yes, it is. It is within probably 40 feet of where staff would go to clock in if they're an hourly person.
Well, I got to tell you, that has to really benefit you, because transportation is a real big challenge for this workforce that we are employing.
It is not just, and even just the shift in how our younger workforce looks at even owning a vehicle.
Right.
So, it's just might be more cost effective for them just to do Uber or Lyft or take public transportation. And in that case, we're a great fit.
Well, I saw a data point that showed that 16-year-olds, 33% are not getting their licenses. And when it was my time, it was a rite of passage. And
Yes.
Right there on my 15th and a half year, I got my learner's permit. And on 16, I was down there on my birthday getting my license.
It was. That's exactly how we grew up, and it's just not that way anymore.
No, they don't really need to drive. I mean, I can get someone else to drive, or I can get Uber to drive, or I can get Lyft to drive.
Yeah,
or I can take public transportation.
Or take public transportation to all those things that are so centrally located.
Which works out really well for you.
It does.
I will tell you, just from firsthand experience with the communities that are up here in North Scottsdale, Some of them are really struggling because they're miles sometimes from a bus stop, and you're talking 40 feet?
Yes.
Nice. Nicely played, Stephanie.
I wish I could take the credit for that. I'm just going to reap the benefits from that.
There you go. So I want to get back into talking about Arcadia, our Clarendale Arcadia. So you have various floor plans.
We do.
So, everyone is not exactly the same. So if you're wanting a single bedroom, 2 bedrooms, can you describe some of these for our listeners?
Oh, I would love to. So with our independent living apartments, we have 8 different floor plans. We have 5 2-bedroom floor plans and 3 1-bedroom floor plans. So there really is something to meet just about everyone's needs. And they're located in different parts of the community. So if you're looking for a particular view and a particular floor plan, then we can work with someone to find what meets all of those needs. And then when we move into assisted living, we have 5 different floor plans with 2 2-bedroom floor plans, which is a bit unusual in an assisted living environment to have large 2-bedroom options, and we do. And then we have 3 1-bedroom floor plans.
I remember seeing them at your, we'll call it the sales office that you had. They're amazing layout. I need to get there to see them. But, I mean, square footage-wise, you go from what to what? I mean,
in independent living, we go from 700 square feet up to over 1,700 square feet.
Wow.
Our largest apartment is a 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath apartment with a built-in wine bar. So it is luxury living.
And I would imagine with a great view.
Fantastic view.
Especially with the wine bar.
Yes.
You got to have a glass of wine. You got to be able to watch a
sunrise.
Well, not a sunrise, a sunset. That sunrise that you took this morning, amazing. It's like that every day, but I mean,
radio, it was my money shot. It really was.
No, it certainly is. So we've gone over floor plans. Before we take our halftime break here, everybody who's looking at communities want to know about the food. So tell us about the food. Tell us about your chef and your team that you've assembled, because the food is really what brings people out.
It is, and many places will say that they have good food. We have great food, and I have the utmost confidence in our culinary team. They put out amazing selections and dishes, everything from salmon with special sauces, braised beef tips with port wine reduction, and then if you want something as simple as even a cheeseburger, that's also going to be elevated. We have a special Clarendale burger. I'm not going to give away everything that's on that because we want people to come try it.
Clarendale burger. I need to get there. I definitely need to get there.
Yes, please. We want you to come down and have a meal with us. It's
so breakfast, lunch,
experience.
dinner. When you do the buy-in, and obviously I want to reemphasize the Founders is still open, 50% off. But when you do the buy-in and you are paying your monthly, how many meals are included in that?
For our independent living folks, they have what's called a choice dining program.
Okay.
And so they receive a monthly, I'll say, meal credit. So almost like a country club where you have an allotment and then you just basically spin down for that. So with the independent living, it is $500 per person. There is a second person fee, but $500. So depending on what someone orders, that's going to give at least 1 meal a day, possibly 2. I know if we're opting for the surf and turf every night, that's probably not going to get you 2 meals a day.
But you do serve.
But we do.
Turf.
We do. Yes.
Wow.
It won't necessarily always be on the menu, but it will. Just for Christmas, we had a wonderful. You had a prime rib option or a lobster tail option, and I had half and half. So it was fantastic, and
prime
that way,
rib.
yes, prime rib was amazing. Yeah, it's great.
All right.
So that's the kind of it is elevated.
You don't need to order from Tommaso's or Tarbell's. You
Nope.
got it right there.
Right, that's just a little change up, but we do have excellent cuisine, and we also we're waiting on the final, but we will have a full liquor license as well.
Nice.
Now the liquor options, you can't use your dining credit for that, but you can still enjoy a nice cocktail or glass of wine with dinner. Those options are there.
And you mentioned some of the rooms earlier. So the room where you can get the view. I mean, there are is it intention to have some of those rooms for the cocktail hours and stuff like that? I mean, I would imagine sitting out on the patio, having a glass of wine, watching the sunset on Camelback Mountain would be pretty special.
Well, we actually have a full bar, and that will open in our second phase, which will open in the spring of. I'm used to saying 2023, and we're in 2023 now. So
I know,
spring
January
now,
6th.
just a few months, and we do have the Arcadia Lounge is a full bar, and that is on the second level, so folks can enjoy a poolside cocktail.
Wow.
Sit around the water feature or the fire pit conversation area, maybe even grab a beer and drink it while you're playing bocce ball. So those things
Bocce ball too?
Bocce ball court, putting green, outdoor yoga space.
No way.
All on the second level.
Wow.
I know.
I mean, this sounds like, my dad, who I've shared with our audience, it has passed, but he was staying at the Optima in Kierland. It sounds like the Optima. I mean, you got swimming, you've got, bocce ball, you got golf, you got it all. You've really thought of everything.
LCS and Ryan Companies in Harris Street, who are the partners in this venture, do an incredible job of making sure that we're offering what our seniors want.
Right.
And the nice thing is especially from the independent living standpoint, the whole idea is really just maintenance-free living. As independent as you are in a standalone home, but without those worries.
Right. And I'm so glad they thought of that because, I mean, let's face it, and we'll talk about it in the next segment about demographical shifts. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. Stefanie Smith here in the studio. Stick around. One down. We've got a second half coming up.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, we're in our second half here. And I've got Stefanie Smith here in the studio with me. She's the executive director from Clarendale, Arcadia. And this is her second appearance here on the show. And she was back here in May when they really were under construction, and they are now open. So they are open on the independent living side, right?
We have some independent living apartments open, and we're a hair's breadth away from being able to open our assisted living and memory care neighborhoods.
Nice. But they do have residents, and they do have their founder membership open. So if you want to learn more about that, please go to their website at clarendalearcadia.com, and you can learn more about that, and you can also find out about their offerings, like the food, and that we talked a little bit about that,
yes.
And the views, and the bocce ball, and the swimming, and you name it.
The size of the apartments, location, all of it.
All of it. So, one of the things we talked about the demographical shift that we've been dealing with, and I think that's where I give Arcadia or Clarendale and Life Care Services the credit, is that, you've been at it 21 years, I've been at it 20, and we've seen a lot of change for the good. And as you mentioned, I mean, the offerings to the residents in these communities is far superior to what it was 20 years ago.
Yes.
But, we're also not really catering to the silent generation or the GI generation anymore. We're catering to the boomers.
Yes.
And when you sat there and you told me about there being a outdoor pool that's on top of the parking garage, that there is, an open bar or bar.
Mm-hmm.
There's bocce ball. There's all kinds of things that are really geared to people that are boomers, that are active.
Active, yes. That's
active.
The key, active.
And I think that Life Care Services has taken that into consideration in really creating Clarendale.
It is. Our purpose is really to provide a fantastic lifestyle experience. So it's not just a home, it's a lifestyle. So with all of the different community common areas that we have, the Mountain Vista Community Room, our Papago Theater Room, our full service salon that's operated by Paul Sebastian Salons.
Wow.
Yes, those things it's a lifestyle. And if somebody's downsizing from a larger home, their apartment is their private space, but you live in the whole community. So you can still have those parties and entertain guests and do those things, but you have the advantage of not having to do setup and cleanup. We can do that for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about hiring staff because we can do that for you.
We can do that for you.
Yeah,
Right.
which is really nice. And you can entertain and be the host or hostess. That's really wonderful. It really is. You know, we talked about demographical shift as it relates to workforce, and you as well as me and everyone that's probably listening that is an employer, and especially those that are small business employers. We look to this generation right now to try to figure out how we can promote within. And I'm sure you're having a lot of these conversations like we are, because I rather get people from within that are homegrown rather than trying to recruit from outside.
Couldn't agree more, and that's a Life Care Services philosophy as well. So many of the folks across LCS have been with the company for 10, 20 years. The longevity is really incredible, and that's the same philosophy and ideal that we're promoting with Clarendale Arcadia specifically. And it is, you can teach most skills, but you can't teach attitude, you can't teach just some of those intangible things. And to be able to have somebody come in and, let's say, a welcome desk attendant position, but then to be able to help that person grow into a business office manager or a sales associate or even something totally different. That's why we have those conversations early on, so we can keep those folks in-house, have those homegrown folks that already know the philosophy, that already know the residents. So that's always our first choice.
Well, that second part's really important to knowing the residents, because it is a personal relationship. And a lot of people today are embracing innovation and technology, and many of these companies that are out there, and I've been very outspoken about this, is that they're very transactional oriented rather than they're relational oriented. And in our business, it's about these relationships. It's about knowing your residents, knowing your employees, knowing when their birthdays are, how many children they have. Making that connection is so important.
It is, and just it's not dissimilar to home care, because we are partners in the same industry.
Right.
But you work in your clients' homes, so do we.
Right.
And that's when you work in someone's home, it's an entirely different setup than an office type environment.
It's personal.
It's very personal.
It is very, very personal. So talk to me a little bit about the partnerships, because, Clarendale, Arcadia, and Cypress have a partnership, but you have partnerships with others. And I got a chance to be at some of the open houses you had, and I got a chance to meet some of these partners. They're first class.
We do. We have formed some great partnerships, and that's really what it's all about. Because as our industry changes and we're looking to provide the best, not just care, but just best overall services and experiences for our residents, those partnerships become more and more important. Because someone may be in independent living, but need a little bit of assistance. Our staff can't provide assistance to an independent living residence. That's why we have partners like Cypress.
Sure.
So we can say, we have a great partner who you can talk with about providing those services in your independent living home. And being able to just keep someone in that same home environment with that continuum of care with the assistance of our partners is fantastic. So we also have a great partnership with both Faith Hospice and Hospice of the Valley. For end-of-life needs and even the palliative care needs, which is, again, those could be whole different shows.
They could be.
But that's important to know, too, because folks can experience even end-of-life in their home. And if Clarendale's Arcadia is their home, that's where we want those services and that to be able to happen. On-site physical therapy. We have Empower, who is our on-site physical therapy provider. So those physical therapy services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy are services that are offered through them in the community. So it's those kinds of partnerships that we pride ourselves on.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned the physical and occupational therapy, because you actually, if I remember correctly, now I've not been over to your community, and I'm planning on coming over next week.
Yes.
Just so you know, but I was in the sales office and I saw the layouts. You also have designated space for physical therapy, right?
Yes,
You
we do.
you have all the equipment there,
Mhm.
and this company, what's the name of it again?
Empower.
Empower.
Mhm.
They come in and they utilize your equipment, but they have the licenses and they are there providing the necessary physical and occupational therapy that your residents need.
Yes, exactly. And even just they do have a dedicated office space, and then it's through we have 3 fitness rooms or 3 fitness areas in the community, and so they can use all the equipment in those different fitness rooms for the various types of therapies that someone may need, or even just to help with some instruction and making sure that a resident is using a piece of equipment properly. So that way we maybe avoid the need for physical therapy.
Right.
But using those and providing that guidance is also part of what our partnership with them offers.
And we've talked about physical and occupational therapy. Certainly residences that are moving in that are plugging in some of their technology. I would imagine, I knew this with my dad, that I was always there trying to help him. You have staff there to help people with their Wi-Fi, their cable, their phones, all the stuff that comes along with the equipment that they need in their residences.
We do. We're still. We're in the final stages of developing a partnership with a provider who can help with those services as well. We are there for kind of the basics to make sure that things will get hooked up, and more obviously with staff there 24/7. If somebody needs help, reprogramming that remote or figuring out which button to press to switch streaming services on a television, will absolutely help with those things. But when we talk about Wi-Fi, that is part of what is included in someone's community fee is Wi-Fi service.
Anything else while we're on that? You have to pay for your cable services too?
Basic cable is included.
Basic cable
so that
is
is
included. There you go.
as well as all other utilities with the exception of phone.
Yeah, and here's a question for you as we get ready to break for our third segment.
Mm-hmm.
Do people really still have landlines? I mean, and I know older adults, and now we're talking about boomers because that's really who our clients are becoming. Do you have a request for landlines as much? I know you're just getting started, but is it 100% right now, or is it?
Right now, I don't have a single resident who has asked for that service, and it will be a voice over internet protocol VoIP phone. Because of where we are, there are literally no landlines wires into the building. Everything is Wi-Fi.
Right. Well, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But have they gone the voice over IP route, or are they using
just
their
using
mobiles?
their cell phones?
Yeah.
Yep.
We've come to a different time, and we're in a different era.
I even text with some of our residents. If they have a quick question, they'll just send me a text and we reply that way.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, you got a little Who taking us out. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I got Stefanie Smith, Executive Director from Clarendale, Arcadia in the studio. We got one more segment. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we are in our final segment. And if you're just tuning in, I got Stefanie Smith here in the studio. She's the Executive Director of Clarendale, Arcadia, and we have learned a great deal about this fabulous community, and I really encourage you all to go check them out, ClarendaleArcadia.com, or call 480-470-5067. She still has some founder memberships available, 50% discount on the entry fee when you come into their community. So, Stefanie, great to have you back. It's been literally about 7 months since you were last here before. I want to really spend time here in this last segment talking about the programming that you have, and then I'm going to ask you to kind of break out your crystal ball. 21 years, I've been at it 20 years. Where do you see this going into the future? So let's talk about the programming that you're doing over at Clarendale, Arcadia.
Thank you, Bob. Some of the programming that we offer, especially with our memory care neighborhoods, we do have two separate memory care neighborhoods, and those are secured environments. And really, I think that even the way we refer to memory care is so important. You'll hear some places say a locked unit, and it's not. It is a home, just like independent living and assisted living. And our staff is very conscious of and very proud of the fact that we have neighborhoods, and it's a secured environment, and that security is strictly for the residents' protection, to make sure that if there are any concerns with them maybe not being able to always know where their apartment is or always know how to exactly get back where they are, that's what that security is for. It's not because we're locking anybody away by any stretch of the imagination. But we have a signature program with our with LCS that is called Heartfelt Connections, and it really is designed to around the thought that someone with dementia works on a 24-hour brain. And so we're very conscious of when we do certain activities and when we bring in musical entertainment and when some of those things happen, because we're conscious of how someone's brain is literally operating. Mornings are going to be a better time to do more stimulating activities. Early afternoon may be a better time to have that musical or live entertainment come in and do things. Then evenings are going to be a little bit more quiet as we start to wind down and need that peace and calm. And even the way that the neighborhoods were built are in really a circular design, so we do have that freedom to walk.
And they do.
Yes.
And they do. I mean, for our listeners that, don't realize this, but anyone that has a memory care challenge, impairment, walking is what they do a lot of. So it's nice that you have that.
And beautiful outdoor spaces. Each neighborhood has its own courtyard that residents are free to go into whenever they choose. Not when we choose, but when they choose.
And I would imagine you got eyeballs on that courtyard.
Absolutely.
Just because of the extreme temperatures that we have here.
Yes. And the courtyards are designed so they are in the center of the neighborhoods. So the interior of the courtyard is visible from within each neighborhood. So we do have ability to have eyes on constantly.
Nice. Really, really nice. So lots of programming, and certainly for those that don't realize this, with memory care, there's a thing called sundowning.
Yes.
And not everybody does,
right?
But many do, and that's why, Stefanie was talking about the programming is really geared for early morning because that is when most people that are having a memory challenge are more cognizant and more participatory. So it's really important to get those programming's done at that hour versus in the later day.
And it is just a deeper understanding of truly how the brain works with a dementia, with a memory illness.
Right. Any other programming you want to share?
Part of our Heartfelt Connections is also life stations. And what those life stations are, they're areas in our memory care neighborhoods where we may have a desk that has a typewriter or that type of paraphernalia out. Maybe somebody was a secretary, and that's going to be familiar to them, and call to them and say, oh my gosh, this is what I'm familiar with. This is what I used to do. A gardening station where literally an indoor garden where someone can put their hands in the dirt. If you've come from maybe that good solid Midwest background where you grew up on a farm, or even if you just have a love for gardening, just putting your hands in the soil can be a very comforting and calming experience. So there's various life stations throughout the neighborhoods where residents are free to take advantage of those and even encouraged to.
Do you need any more typewriters? I found one in my dad's. Serious. I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
I will take you up on the typewriter.
Okay. You bet.
Yeah.
Especially for that community.
Yes.
I get that, the connections. So we wind down. Future, 21 years, 20 years. I've got just a couple minutes here. What do you see for the future?
I feel like we have made such strides in our industry, but we still have a long way to go. And I think that the advancements in technology, we as an industry need to embrace that more because, as you pointed out, these are boomers, And we don't even have folks that are interested in landline or VoIP options. We're already using our cell phones.
Right.
So to be able to have service accessibility and things like that through technology, I think is going to be very important. And really flexibility in services. Having those more open dining programs and allowing folks to really more customize the services that they're interested in their living environment. I think that's the way things are going, and it's the right path.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that, you and I and others that have been around for as long as we have, we need to influence this, because if we let the kids do it, something I mentioned earlier to you, it becomes a transactional type of a relationship, and we need to be more relational, and really get to know the people. I mean, get to know your residents, get to know their birthdays, get to know their children and their grandchildren,
Right.
rather than just having somebody, sit behind four walls.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, this gig economy we are in really doesn't get that yet.
Absolutely agree. And I think those relationships with the residents specifically really needs to be stressed, because we absolutely want what family members to be involved, adult children, grandchildren, but it's the resident who's actually going to be living there. So we really need to hear their voice and have their input to make sure we're providing the services that they want, and maybe not what son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter want, because those things that don't always align.
Well, you hear the music, and I couldn't agree with you more. 100%. Stephanie Smith, so great to have you here on the show. I'm going to give you a plug one more time. ClarendaleArcadia.com, 480-470-5067. They still have some of the founder type programming available, so call now. Great location, 32nd Street in Camelback. Stephanie, great to have you.
Thank you, Bob. Really appreciate it.
When are we getting out and playing golf?
I know we keep talking about it. We got to do it
Well,
before it gets hot.
We definitely need to. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next Friday. Thank you.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.